Hey, it's Kaero. Welcome back to the channel. We are doing part 11 of rating and generating cards using artificial intelligence with Urzas A.I. 0 is unplayable, 10 is a bomb. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for hitting that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content and arena gameplay. Let's get into it. Alright, so here we have Rift Gateway Pathmage, Mask of Immediate something or other. It is a plane, not like other planes. This plane is specifically Guile. Just so you know, the mask is killer. I love the art. Let's see what it does. Affinity for Aetherborn Thorin Gravesons. Okay, so if you're looking for something for your Thorin Gravesons deck, if he's your commander, go ahead and put Rift Gateway Pathmage Mask of Immediacy in there. It's going to be a 5, because we don't know what it does. Could be broken, could be crappy. Let me know in the comments what you think the mask does. Next up, we have Field Flare. This is a white instant, 1 white, 2 generic. You may return any number of target attacking creatures to their owner's hands. That's not bad. 3 mana instant, any attacking creature, so you're on the defensive on this. Somebody swings in on you, they think they have lethal, but you have lethal next turn. You just return every one of their attacking creatures. Now, they have to attack for you to do this, so it's kind of situational. But you can also attack in, say, with all of your things, and then they line up bad blocks, and you can return whatever, pick out which ones that you want to return to your own hand, especially if you have later in the game you have extra mana and you might have some things that have enter the battlefield effects. I think this also might be able to stop ninjutsu. So if they're attacking you and then they activate a ninjutsu cost, they have to return that ninja back to their hand to get that other ninjutsu creature in. And I think if you return this back to their hand, that other creature back to their hand, and I think that fizzles that spell. Let me know if you disagree or you think that doesn't work that way, but I'm fairly certain that it does. Let's look at the flavor text. The Terran spoke slowly, using a few meaningless gestures in lieu of his face. The unspent mana worked away on his armor, bringing his height to another 10 feet. So he spoke slowly, using meaningless gestures, but instead of his face? And then there was unspent mana. I guess the mana burn worked away on his armor, but then made him 10 feet taller? Field Flare is wild. Let's give this like a situational 5. Next up is Domperd Spree. 1 black, 4 generic for a zombie creature, relevant creature type. 4/4 with lifelink. For 5 mana, it's not bad. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice Domperd Spree unless you discard a card. So the only way that this is even remotely good is if you have some sort of sacrifice synergy that you would want to sacrifice this, but it's a lot of money to pay for a creature sacrifice, or a lot of mana, excuse me. 5 mana is not your typical sacrifice fodder. You want this to stick around the board, but it says you may sacrifice it unless you discard a card. So if you discard a card, then you cannot sacrifice it? Right? Am I reading this right? It doesn't say sacrifice it unless you discard a card. It says you may. So that means you have to discard a card or else you can't sacrifice your Domperd Spree. I don't think this is good. I think this is like a 2. Maybe a 3 just for the base lifelink stats in black, but yeah, let's give it like a 3. Okay, first green spell, Red Clover, which is a green spell, 1 green, 1 colorless for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature and draw 2 cards in green. This is like a worse deadly dispute, or like a village rites, but it's in green, which actually makes a huge difference because it's card draw in green like this. You typically don't see this way. It would be really good if it was an instant. But this means you could run mono green stompy, mono green aggro decks, and you could have card draw. I think this is pretty good. I'm going to give this like a 6 or a 7. What's the flavor? Even the hottest sun is known to warm the chill in the soul. Okay, that's like a legitimate flavor text I could see on a magic card, so there's nothing like really crazy there. But having a 2 mana draw 2 spell in green, especially when you have like elf tokens or something like that, you could build some really cool stuff in the theme of mono black, but being mono green with this. So I think this is like a 6 or 7, maybe higher than that. Let me know in the comments. Next up is Skarwood Ghoul, 1 black, 1 generic for a zombie creature, relevant creature type. It's a 0/0. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature you control. Very interesting. So the fact that it's a zombie could actually be useful in a black deck that really wants to generate a lot of zombie tokens. Potentially, you get I think probably the middle here is you play this on turn 3 or 4, and you get like a 3/3/4/4 for 2 mana. There is a huge downside though. Say you have this in your hand, they sweep the board on you, get rid of all your tokens. This thing is just a dead card. So it really makes you focus on getting a lot of creatures out there, and it doesn't have any special abilities. It's just like a big nasty creature for 2 if you can have 5 or 6 creatures on the board. And the flavor text is the ghoul wanted to make it so that no one would eat him. Well, yeah. So that's going to be a huge ghoul. So he definitely did make it like no one would eat him if he comes out with a bunch of other creatures around. He's the top dog ghoul. 2 mana, low ceiling. Sorry, high ceiling. Could potentially be a dead card. I'm going to give this like middle of the road, probably like a 4 or 5. Next is Righteous Giant. 1 white, 4 generic for a giant creature at 4/4. So 5 mana, 4/4. Looks like it doesn't have any abilities. Not so great. When Righteous Giant dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. Ick. No, that's not good. Whenever it dies, it doesn't even go in the graveyard. You can't even bring it back or anything. What's the flavor text? The most virtuous, most honorable, and most gracious of all giants. Those things might be true, Righteous Giant. I'm willing to say that you're honorable and gracious and virtuous, but you're just not good, buddy. I'm going to give this card like a 1. Next we have Uhans Sidecutter. 1 red, 1 generic for a goblin creature at 1/1. Look at the art on that. That art is terrifying. That's like something that I would have in a dream after I had one too many drinks at the local Applebee's or something. Ugh. That just terrifies me. All right, that's the biggest goblin, craziest goblin I've ever seen. What does the card do? When Uhans Sidecutter enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a card named Scavenged Thing. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And the flavor is the Rhymewind Chief glidens through the Tree of Tales, joining the jesters at the center of the table. All right, you know the drill. Right now, this is a 2-drop, 1/1 goblin. We need to find out what scavenge, not scavenge, thing does, and then we need to rate this on that merit. So let's go. All right, so we have scavenged thing. It is a creature. I thought it was going to be like a tutor, right? That would make sense. Go grab an artifact or something. So it's 1 red, 3 generic for a beast, 4/4 trample. Okay, having your 2-drop goblin go grab you a 4/4 trample, that's cool. Whenever Scavenged Thing deals combat damage to a player, you may put target artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library. That is not bad. To play a 1/1 goblin, you can get it in Goblin Tribal. If this was a goblin, this would be amazing. It's red, so you can play it in mono red, and it's a 4/4 trample for 4 and grabs your artifacts back. I'm sure that you could do this with artifacts that you sacrifice, put them in the graveyard, then grab them back to the top of your library. It sucks that they don't come back to the battlefield or to your hand, but I'm sure there's some potential in this thing. So I'm going to give this thing, let's give the pair, the Sidecutter and these, like a 6. This thing on its own, I'm going to say is like a, I guess it's like a 6, and they're all just 6s, I would think. Let me know if you disagree in the comments. Next is Subterranean Song. 1 black, 1 generic for a sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control for 2 mana. It gains indestructible. And then you exile it at the beginning of the next end step. I was like, this is busted. A 2 mana, just grab whatever creature from the graveyard. It is sorcery speed. So this is kind of odd, right? Because you have to do this on your turn. It's 2 mana, grab a creature, bring it in. The only way I could see this being good is if it had the creature had an enter the battlefield effect that you really wanted, because then you have to exile it at the beginning of your next end step, and it has to be on that exact same turn. So you can't attack with it, doesn't have haste, so you just need a creature with a nasty enter the battlefield effect. I just think this is way too narrow. I'm going to give this a 2. What's the flavor text? Its new companions may obey its whispers, but those who obey its whispers are but too late. Okay, fair enough, Subterranean Song. That's a really cool card name, and it's a really cool card art that fits the name, though. So I think this is actually a really cool design that the AI did here. I really like that art in the name. Next, we have Wilkie Decimator. 1 blue, 3 generic. That is a hell of a metal name for a blue card. And look at the art. Are we sure this is blue? This should be a black card, I think, right? Just by the art alone. It is a human wizard, though, so that makes sense in blue. It's a 2/2 creature. Whenever a creature dealt damage by a single blue creature this turn dies, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, so it has to be dealt damage by a single blue creature. That could be their blue creature, or your blue creature, or wilkie decimator, or not wilkie decimator. So, if you're playing blue, and they're playing blue, that means that wilkie decimator's on the battlefield, and any creature that dies, as long as it was blocked by only one creature, you get to return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. I thought it was your control. Return to the battlefield under its owner's control. So then all of your creatures, you can just make them all blockers and have them die and then come back and then have all their enter the battlefield effects. I think this is actually pretty good in a control deck. It just makes your creatures die and then come back. And then if you get later on, you play a big creature that's blue and you attack with it, it dies. But it has to be dealt damage by a single blue creature. So if you attack with your blue creature and they're playing green, yours dies, it doesn't come back. This is insane. I have like 2 brain cells. I'm trying to fire on both of them right now. So this is a blue card that you sideboard in against blue, because you also don't want to block their creature with this wilkie decimator, or your blue creature have theirs die and come back under their control. So wilkie decimator is for your blue deck, sideboard against blue. Got that right? So in that situation, I think it's very potent. And in all other situations, I think it's a 1. This is a crazy card. Okay, so here's Wayfaring Widow, 1 black, 2 generic for a zombie. You're getting a lot of zombies this time. Star, power, and toughness. When Wayfaring Widow enters the battlefield, exile target creature card from a graveyard. Wayfaring Widow's power and toughness are each equal to the exiled card's power and toughness. Okay, so high ceiling on this. You can potentially get a big creature for 3 mana. It doesn't have any evasion, no flying, first strike, death touch, anything like that. It's simply just going to be a big creature. Before we rate it, what's the flavor text? That will make the people of Zendikar once and for all stand back. Volrath. Okay, so what do we think about this card? Typically, if you play this on turn 3 and there's only a 1/1 creature in the graveyard, it's going to be bad, right? It's going to be very bad. And then if you play it on like turn, I guess you could put something big into your graveyard and then do this, but I think reanimation is still better than this. I think this is probably like a 2 or 3. I mean, I just don't see the value in getting, like, especially at 3 cost, like a big creature that's just killed with a removal spell. I could be wrong, but I just don't think it's standing up to it. I think it's like a 3. Here we have Voivodes Transmutation. 1 black, 4 generic for a sorcery. Target player discards a card. If you've cast a creature spell this way, draw a card. What way? What way could we cast a creature to enable that card draw? They discard a card, and if we cast a creature spell the way that they discard a card? Once again, brain cells are just going, how? I think this is just a 5 mana target player discards a card, and if that's the case, I'm going to give it a 1. What's the flavor? A deep world that feeds on more than one aspect of the soul. All right, cool flavor text, cool art for sure. It's like a lich with some sort of like green bauble on the belt loop there, but I think it's a 1. Next is Null Mage Image, all 1 word. 1 blue, 2 generic for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Scry 1. Blue combat trick that grants power and a scry for 3 mana. Flavor text is, even after Squee offered his severed head, Giza's attempt to leave revealed a terrible scene. Blood ran down the sides of his mask, making him seem even more disfigured. Alright. Pretty cool flavor text. I like that. Null Mage Image, 3 mana, combat trick, scry 1. It's going to be a 2. That concludes the video for today. There were some good ones in there. There were a lot more realistic ones that I had to really think about. Sometimes they're just off the charts busted, or sometimes they're just really unplayable. I feel like we had a lot of middle of the road ones, and the AI was doing a good job at making some very playable cards. I will be interested to know what you think in the comments. Thank you for hitting that thumbs up and subscribing, and always have a great day, and I'll see you next time.